Welcome back, everyone. This is part 3 of our materials and resources lecture this week. And we're going to be talking about waste management and waste reduction. And finally, materials and resources through the project life cycle. And let's start out with the idea that the construction industry in general generates a large amount of solid waste. We're talking about trash here. And a large amount of it is construction debris. All right, this can include things like offcuts and oddly sized materials, everything that you would haul away from a construction project in a dumpster. Another large piece of this is transportation packaging. So every material that gets delivered to your site wrapped up in plastic or enclosed in a box or located on a pallet. All right, all of that packaging adds up. If we take a look at the chart from your textbook here, here's some typical construction waste for a mid-size home, a 2,000 square foot home. And you can take a look at all of the different types of construction waste, the wood, the drywall, all right, that's all the damaged pieces and the offcuts. There's a lot of cardboard. Cardboard's not a construction material. Well, that's the transportation packaging we're talking about. All right. Metals, vinyl, masonry, all the different packaging again, paint cans, caulking guns, and you end up with 8,000 pounds of construction waste. In addition, waste is going to be generated across the building life cycle. All right. As new products arrive, so buildings get deliveries all the time of materials that are used to repair or remodel, or simply for the operation of the building. And then the used materials are discarded. And overall, this waste is going to be transported to landfills, some of it incinerated, recycled, or composted. So how can we manage or reduce this waste? Here are some strategies. And the first one is to design buildings that produce less waste in general. This would include what we already talked about earlier, prefabrication in a factory or shop setting, and efficient framing using those advanced framing techniques. The next one is broad. It is called Develop a Construction Waste Management Policy. And the idea here is if you think ahead about such a thing, all right, you can manage how much waste is produced and where it goes after it leaves the site. Finally, kind of on the same idea of what gets measured gets managed, you can establish a tracking system, all right, for where your waste goes and what happens to it after it leaves the site. Now, once your building is in the operational phase, there are many strategies that a facilities manager could use to reduce waste, all right, during the operations and maintenance of a building. And take a look through this list, but the one I want to highlight is number 2 in this list here, conduct a waste stream audit. And you'll see this as one of the credit opportunities in LEED. And what it means is someone comes and takes a look at where are all of the waste streams, the different types of waste leaving a building going. And the idea is by auditing these things, then you can improve performance. Let's finish up our discussion of materials and resources by talking about the project life cycle. And what you see here are all of the different materials and resources strategies we've just talked about in their three categories: conservation of materials, environmentally preferable materials, and waste management. But I've categorized those different strategies as being most appropriate for use during design, during construction, and during the operations and maintenance phase of a building's life cycle. So let's start out on the left-hand side talking about conservation of materials. Most of these strategies are appropriate during design. All right, so you can select salvaged materials. You can choose to reuse existing buildings. You can plan for smaller communities. These are all strategies for use during design. But there are some strategies appropriate for construction and operations. To use efficient framing techniques, again, we'll use less materials. And finally, to promote source reduction, and that's in the procurement of your operational materials. Moving on to environmentally preferable materials, you can see that I have kind of copied uh, the different strategies appropriate here, both during design and during construction. All right, so these are the same strategies, and they are to identify local sources, to develop a sustainable materials policy, and to specify green materials and equipment. Now, I hear from students all the time, this program is aimed more towards architecture. A lot of the sustainable design concepts that we cover are really focused on earlier in the design cycle. All right, on the architect and not on the construction manager. So all of you who are studying construction management, heads up, this is your time to shine. All right, here in materials and resources is the largest impact that a construction manager can have on sustainability in the project life cycle. All right. And that's because of the procurement process. So even if you're not on a lead project, even if you're not part of an integrated design team and you've only been brought in later in the process, even if your owner, the project owner, is not heavily invested in sustainability, you can still have a major impact through your procurement process in selecting environmentally preferable materials. Moving on to the waste management and reduction section here. The design team can have and during the design process, there can be a small amount of impact. But again, the major impact here is going to be through construction management and during the construction phase. All right, that construction waste management policy, it can have a major impact on overall waste reduction. And finally, there are many strategies that can be used during operations and maintenance to manage and reduce that continuous waste stream that happens after the project, excuse me, is occupied. Thank you, everyone. In this video, we just covered waste management and reduction strategies and took a look at overall materials and resources strategies across the project life cycle.